To the extent that I understood what he was saying, let's press on here. Are you able to see on your screen the continuing quest 4.1 to 6.9?
Yeah.
Yes, brother.
Okay, good. All right. We didn't finish the initial unit of the book of Ecclesiastes last week. So I want to pick that up at chapter 6, verse 1. And this is the best I can do to summarize this last section, 5:18 to 6:9, to enjoy the portion that God has granted as his gift. Even the enjoyment, thus avoiding brooding over life. He's looking at what is good now. And so here is his good so far as he's gone. And we looked at 5:18 to the end of the chapter. Let's pick it up at 6:1. There is an evil. So let me go over to 6:1. Here is summary of this. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it's prevalent among men. A man to whom God has given riches and wealth and honor, so that his soul lacks nothing of all that he desires. Yet God has not empowered him to eat from them, for a foreigner enjoys them. This is vanity. This is hevel that we talked about the last couple of weeks. This is hevel, a severe affliction. And that's just one of some of a few examples. Second example, if a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, however many they may be, but his soul is not satisfied with good things, and he does not even have a proper burial, then I say better is the miscarriage than he. So it would be better never even lived than to have been such a man that everyone would assume is blessed by God, but in fact has never come to really enjoy, to understand the goodness of his life. For the miscarriage, verse 4, comes in futility, goes into obscurity, and its name is covered in obscurity. It never sees the sun. It never knows anything. It's better off than he. Verse 6 expands this issue. Even if the other man lives 1,000 years twice and does not enjoy good things, do not all go to one place? So if you were even to live 2,000 years, the end product of your life is death. So what is the advantage that you have in living 2,000 years? I'm not interested in living 2,000 years in this present world. This world is not worth living 2,000 years in. There's a world coming in which these things will be reality, but not now. And that's the point in this whole thing. Verse 7, do not all go to one place. All a man's labor is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not satisfied. For what advantage does the wise man have over the fool? You will say, well, the wise man is wise and at least avoids some of the folly of the fool. But he goes on. What advantage does the poor man have, knowing how to walk before the living? All die. So if you're wise, your wisdom will deliver you from death. If you're a fool, you suffer in life from it. But if you're wise, you suffer in life from it. So what is the advantage? And he comes to the conclusion here at verse 9, what the eyes see is better than what the soul desires. This too is futility, striving after the wind. When you see that word soul, sometimes that word soul refers to appetite. And this may be one of the places where that word soul means something like appetite. In the great commandment, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. The point may well be that what's in view is loving God with all your appetite. All of your appetites are focused on him. And Ecclesiastes addressing this issue. Even a wise man can have the wrong appetites. So if I have the wrong appetites, there's no advantage in all of this. There is a break here probably at 6:8. So we, or 6:9 rather, what the eye sees is better. From this point, the book changes. And I was looking for the article that addressed this issue just before the session began this morning. Why am I going backwards here? There was an article I was looking for, and I was not able to put my hands on it. But the man who wrote the article shows that the book of Ecclesiastes is a literary bifid. A bifid is something that's divided into two parts, and it's divided along a kind of numeric line. The word hevel in Hebrew, the Hebrew alphabet is the numbering system for Hebrew. So Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3, Dalet is 4, and so on. So you can add up the numbers of the word and come to a conclusion. Yod, Kaf, Lamed. Lamed is the third letter of the word, so that would be 30. And Bet is 2, and Hevel, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey is 5. So 37. There are multiples of 37 uses of the word Hevel. Vanity, futility in the book of Hebrews, and in the book of Ecclesiastes, and they seem to split. In fact, the total number of uses of Hevel and the total number of, I've forgotten the argument, split right at this point. So verse 9 is the end of the first major section, and then verse 10 begins the second major section. So here, wisdom instruction on life's true values, growing out of Solomon's experience and reflection. Solomon has now explored much of human life. Once again, I take Solomon to be the author, as most of you do. This is widely disputed in modern scholarship, but modern scholarship has been wrong about many things. And so I'm not terribly impressed that I'm out of harmony with modern scholarship. So if Solomon is the author, Solomon has been in a unique position to explore what's good in life, to look at values, people, the things that people spend their lives to achieve. And he's come to some conclusions about what's good in life. And he's going to turn to that now in 6:10 to 11:6. So let's pick up the first section, 6:10 to 9:6. Meditation on life as it is, with death looming over it all one's days. The younger you are, the less this is significant for you. The older you are, the more it's part of your life. I was talking to a man last night. He's 90. He has been a vigorous man, a powerful man all his life, was a jet pilot, a fighter jet pilot in the American Air Force. He became an instructor in the Air Force. He left the Air Force and became a pilot for FedEx. The headquarters of FedEx are here in Memphis, Tennessee. So John had settled in Memphis many years ago. and flew from FedEx. He's been everywhere. He's done everything, but he had a rare, an odd experience physically this last week. He ended up in the hospital for 4 days. His blood pressure went to over 214. Well, I had 120 something, and people were worried about my life. It was more than that. It was blood pressure was the number was just like 140 or something like that. People were worried about my life, and he had at age 90, 214. And the doctors came and they said, "We don't know what's wrong with you. We've done every test. We know what to do. And every test shows," they say, "you have the heart of a 17-year-old. No plaque, no cholesterol buildup, no blockages. Everything is as clean as it can be. It's like a 17-year-old would have." And he said, and I'm 16 years younger than he. And I said, at this age of our lives, we're becoming aware of the fact that none of us is promised the next day. The younger you are, the more you assume you're going to live much longer than you have lived. But but what you must learn from wisdom and from Solomon is you're not promised anything but the day that you're living in now. Tomorrow, you're not promised. And so death looms over everything. You've seen this in COVID, and you struggled with it. People that were vigorous were attacked by COVID and died. And now we've got another small outbreak so far in the US. Who knows how many millions of people have actually died from COVID? People who died and who were not diagnosed, and nobody knows. Death looms over everything all the days of one's life. I heard a medical doctor, an old friend of mine whom I've not seen in 20 years. I heard an address he gave to a men's group last night. I listened to it. He and his wife had a new baby, and all the hopes and delights that you have at the birth of a new baby, but something was wrong. And he never did go into any detail on the illness that the child had. The child only lived 2 days and passed away. Death looms over everything. And if that's the case, then every project I may have may be squelched by my death. Every plan I have, every hope I have, everything I try to do could be brought to an end by death, and I would never achieve it. So what's good? What can I pursue in life? So let's pick it up. 6:10. Now, to just make things a little more gloomy, whatever exists has already been named, and it's known what man is, for he cannot dispute with him who is stronger than him. Really, you can't do anything new. You can't make a contribution. You can make a contribution to your day. You can make your contribution to your family. Nothing you can do is new. Nothing you can do is beyond simply living, being born, spending one's life, getting educated, getting prepared for a life work, doing your life's work. But every morning you get up, and every evening you come home and you go to sleep. You hope you sleep well. The harder you have to work physically, the better you sleep at night. The less you have to work physically, the less sleep you get at night. So what's good? Whatever exists has already been named, and it is man is, for he cannot dispute with him who is stronger than he. For there are many words which increase futility, and there's our word hevel again. What then is the advantage to a man? For who knows what's good for a man during his lifetime, during the few years of his futile life? He will spend them like a shadow. For who can tell a man what will be after him under the sun? Now, verses 1 to 6, let's move on. Let's move on to that. Chapter 7, a good name is better than a good ointment. Living in India with high humidity, I don't know whether this, especially those of you who live along the coast, will not have this perhaps experience as much as some of the people of India who live in the northern part of the nation, especially the northwestern part, where you have vast deserts. And in a place of very low humidity, ointment is critical, and it is a blessing. So Israel had the same kind of climate. Although there was a good deal of humidity, there was not much rain, and dry skin was a problem for them. So you will remember perhaps one of the songs of ascent where it talks about behold how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together. It's like oil coming down on Aaron's head and dripping off his beard. You longed for the time when you could have oil for your skin so it wasn't dry and itchy and flaking. You longed for that, and it was a refreshing balm to the skin. So here, it's better, as we read, a good name is better than a good ointment, and the day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth. When you're born, you're born to. I want you to remember that Solomon right now is things that are under the sun. So as he's looking at life under the sun, just like every secular man looks at life, you're born and everybody's happy, but nobody knows whether the child born is going to be or profoundly wicked by human terms, or indeed a saint. Nobody knows. But whatever the nature of the child is born for trouble, and trouble will be its lot most of its life. And the day of death means the end of trouble, the end of suffering, the end of pain. You're bringing your Christian point of view into this book. Set it aside for the moment. Look at life from the worldling's point of view. That's what Solomon is doing. What's the advantage of life? So verse 2, it's better to go to the house of mourning than to a house of feasting, because that's the end of every man, and the living takes it to heart. If you pay attention to how much death there is in the world, and my doctor friend who spoke in the video, it was actually within hours of the video was posted within hours of him giving the address, is a pediatric physician in an inner city hospital in Memphis, where most people who come don't have money for even a primary care physician. So they just go to the hospital as the means of getting taken care of. And he worked in the clinics during the time of COVID. He couldn't even go home and see his family. And he's crazy about his family. But the issue is that he saw death on a daily basis. And he had to confront the problem that all of us must confront. Every one of us sitting here must confront the problem. We're going to die, and all of our projects, all of our hopes are going to come to an end. So where is there hope? Where is there anything to work for? Your Hindu friends, your Hindu neighbors think it's in the next life, but they don't know how much karma they've built up in this present life. Where is hope? In Hinduism, there is no hope. And in America, the secularist has no hope. There's nothing except whatever little moments of pleasure you can grasp out of this life. Those moments of pleasure end in pain and sorrow. What good is life? So Solomon is setting us up for the answer he's going to give at the end of the book. Verse 3, sorrow is better than laughter. None of us thinks this. But Solomon in his life came to conclude that sorrow is better than laughter, for when a face is sad, a heart may be happy. The mind of the wise is in the house of mourning. The mind of the fool is in the house of pleasure. It's better to listen to rebuke of a wise man than for one to listen to the song of fools. For as the cracking of thorn bushes under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This too is futility. For oppression makes a wise man mad. And mad here is used in the way you use the word mad, not in the way Americans use the word mad. Mad in America means angry. For you, mad means out of your mind. Oppression makes a wise man mad, and a bribe corrupts the heart. The end of a matter is better than its beginning. Patience of spirit, better than haughtiness of spirit. Do not be eager in your heart to be angry, for anger resides in the bosom of fools. Do not say, why is it that the former days were better than these? That's what old men say. And Solomon probably wrote this as an old man. It was better than in the former days than these. For it is not from wisdom that you ask about this. Wisdom, along with an inheritance, is good and an advantage to those who see the sun. For wisdom is protection, just as money is protection. But the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the lives of its possessors, and money can't. Consider the work of God. We've gone past verse 10. Let me pick up verse 11 now, 9:11 to 11:6, the limitations of wisdom. So here, the first limitation of wisdom, life is already sovereignly determined by God and beyond our understanding, so advice is cheap and often worthless. There was an old movie years and years ago. It comes from probably the 1950s. It was kind of a teenage movie. It was a young teenage girl named Gidget, and there were several movies made about Gidget. And she asks an older man for advice, and he says to her, why do you ask my advice? If it's good advice, you won't take it. And if it's bad advice, who needs it? So the whole issue of seeking for advice, so sovereignly determined. So advice is cheap and often worthless. So we started already with verse 10. Let's move on to 6:10 to 12. Did I turn the page already? Yes. Let's pick it up. 7:1 to 7. There are three things one should pursue: a good name, wisdom gained in the house of mourning, and reproof from wise people, though even the wise may forfeit from his wisdom. So there are some things to look for, and we've just been looking at them. But the reality is, folks, this is about all that he's been able to find up to now in pursuit of understanding life as it is. What do you do in a world that's like our world? Well, you seek a good name. You seek wisdom, but you can't find it where we usually look. We must look at the house of mourning to find wisdom. And you seek reproof from wise people, but even wise people can lose their wisdom. What good is all of this? So now 7, 8 to 10, patience. Waiting for the end of a matter is better than a haughty spirit, claiming that the old days were better. No, the old days were not better. They were bad. Perhaps they were days where I wasn't aware of what was going on. And so I could think everything was pretty good. I remember my childhood quite well, as all of you do. And in my childhood, life was pretty good. I knew we didn't have much money as a family, but I got to eat every meal and I had a place to live. I had friends that I enjoyed. I wasn't real keen on school in those days, but school was okay. You could tolerate school. I didn't know all the evils that were going on in the society around me. I was insulated. And now looking back on what I know about the 1950s, they were a bad time in my nation. Didn't know it, but they were a bad time. And I've had to, so I can't say the old days were better. Yeah, I enjoyed them more because I didn't understand as much. But this is the reality of what life is. So 7:11 to 12, wisdom along with an inheritance is good and an advantage to those who live to see the sun. For wisdom, protection, just as money is protection. But there's an advantage of knowledge, and that is that wisdom preserves the lives of its possessors. Verses 13 and 14. The times call for proper response, enjoyment of good things that God gives, reflection in the time of difficulty, and not finding fault with God. This is going to be a fairly important pair of verses. I'm marking it myself as I look at it. Consider the work of God, for who is able to straighten what he has bent? You got to understand, whatever your plans are, whatever you are involved in, God has a plan, and your work must fit in with his plan for it to prosper. If your work doesn't fit his plan, your work is going to fail. And this is the great issue for us as Christians. I can remember people saying when I was much younger, expect great things from, plan great things for God and expect great things from God. And that sounded good, and I thought I knew what it meant in those days. I've come to understand that people misapply that language because they don't consider who said that, the missionaries who said that. They were not making great plans for God in the way we do. I'm going to build a church of 1,000 people, and I'm going to impact this community. God doesn't want churches of 1,000 people. That's not God's plan. God's plan is building a family. It's not building a corporation. God's plan is building the body of Christ, not a corporation. He's not in the business of making great leaders. He's in the business of saving people who are great sinners and turning them into great, mature brothers and sisters in Christ. So if your great plan is to build a great organization, forget it, get over it. God isn't interested in making great organizations. The great organizations that have arisen have all fallen over the years because they were more interested in preserving the organization than they were in furthering the plan of God. You get involved in the plan of God, and then you can expect great things from him. That's the point here. So first, consider the work of God, for who is able to straighten what he has bent. In the day of prosperity, be happy. Enjoy it every moment. But in the day of adversity, consider God has made the one as well as the other, so that man will not discover anything that will be after him. God has specifically organized life so that much of life doesn't make sense. Now, why has he done that? Well, we're not through with Ecclesiastes yet. We're going to get there today. Let's press on. Verses 15 to 18, seeking to present oneself as overly righteous or sinful are both foolish, since the same death awaits both in the end. I have seen everything during my lifetime of futility. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness. Remember what the Mosaic law offers. If you're righteous, a long life. But Solomon has seen righteous people die. And there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in his wickedness. What did the law of Moses promise? It promised that wickedness would mean a short life. But there are righteous people who die early, wicked people who live long lives. How does this fit? Do not be excessively righteous. How can you be excessively righteous? By making claims for yourself that are not true. Brothers and sisters, I don't know whether there are any sisters with us today. It doesn't appear to be. But a terrible piece of news came out this weekend about a major denomination here in the United States, the one I grew up in. They have been protecting in effect, not on purpose, but in effect, they have been protecting wife abusers and sexual predators, child abusers in church leadership for an unknown number of years. There are hundreds of people that are known to be on a list, perhaps thousands of people who are known to be on a list that the leaders of the denomination, a major missionary organization and a major evangelistic organization, hundreds, perhaps thousands of names on a list that the leaders of the organization have been protecting for all these years, and it just came out and has been made public, and major leaders are now trying to pick up the pieces. They're more interested in protecting the organization, and they've said this, it's going to hurt our ministry. We don't want to hurt our ministry to make these things known. And now it's been publicized, and they're in deep trouble. Folks, they've not been building the kingdom of God. They've been building their organization. It's one of the reasons I left that denomination, and I won't name its name. Perhaps the news has already come to India. I don't know. But if it does, you will understand the circumstance. So here, they've been presenting themselves as righteous and enemies of evil in the community, and they are harboring evil within their own numbers. So where was that verse? Verse 17, do not be excessively wicked, do not be a fool. I'm sorry, it's actually verse 16, do not be excessively righteous, and do not be overtly wise. Why should you ruin yourself? Verse 18, what's good then? It is good that you grasp one thing and also not let go the other. Don't be excessively wise. Give up on your wickedness, for the one who fears God comes forth with both of them, righteousness and wisdom. If you fear God, you see, now we're getting to the point. Solomon is beginning to prepare us to understand the message at the end of the book. All of our pretensions are folly. What he's asking for us to do is to go right to the heart of the matter. Fear God. The one who fears God comes forth with both of them. So verse 18 is a critical verse in this book as far as we've gone. Verses 19 and 20, wisdom does have its values, but there is no one on earth who is righteous without sinning. So wisdom strengthens a man more than 10 rulers who are in a city. Indeed, there is not one righteous man on earth who continually does good and never sins. So you can be wise, but don't get too excited about your wisdom, because you still sin. And there's still an aspect of folly in you to the extent that you still sin. Verses 21 and 22, refusal to pay attention to what is said behind one's back is wise, since everyone curses others in moments when they think they are safe. So 21 and 22, don't take seriously all words which are spoken, so that you will not hear your servant cursing you. For you also have realized that you likewise have many times cursed others. Verses 23 and 24, the wisdom that I sought continually eluded me, being finally undiscoverable. I tested all this by wisdom, and I said, I will be wise, but it is far from me. What has been is remote and exceedingly mysterious. Who can discover it? I've probably told you this before, but I apologize for the repetition. But the day that they told me I had satisfied all the requirements for my doctorate and that I was now ready to graduate, a great sigh of relief came from me and a smile on my face. But I walked out the door of the room, and as I walked out, I thought, they give doctorates to people who know no more than I do. One thing that I learned for sure in all the years of education that I had, 12 years of public education, 4 years of university, 4 years for my master's degree, and 5.5 years for my doctorate. It's too many years. In all of that education, I learned how little I actually knew. How do they give doctorates to people who know no more than I do? How can this be the case? And once you gain wisdom, you will understand how much folly there is still in your own life. So verses 23 and 24. Verses 25 to 29. Sin has infected the whole of humanity, men and women, whom the Lord favored will escape. I directed my mind to know, to investigate, to seek wisdom and an explanation, and to know the evil of folly and the foolishness of madness. And I discovered, more bitter than death, the woman whose heart is snares and nets, whose hands are chains. One who is pleasing to God will escape from her, but the sinner will be captured by her. Behold, I have discovered this, says the preacher, adding one thing to another to find an explanation, which I am still seeking and have not found. I have found one man among 1,000. Oh boy, I'm sure glad there aren't any women here today, and I don't know quite how to deal with this that he says. I have found one man among 1,000, but I have not found one woman among all these. Surely that, I don't know what to do with that. And that must not become a ground for which to evaluate all women. This is under the sun thinking still. Behold, I have found only this, that God made humanity upright, but they have sought out many devices. We have corrupted everything God has done. So this verse 28 is not an indictment of women that we can escape. You and I fall under verse 29 as much as anything else. Chapter 8, verse 1, wisdom brings knowledge and transforms one's countenance. Chapter 8, verse 2 to 9, royal authority demands obedience, but it's greatly limited, though used to oppress, not realizing the outcome of the action. I can't obviously go through the rest of the book with the kind of discussion that we've been doing up to this point. But just to point out, I just wanted you to get a flavor of this and see how we might read it. Remember that much of what you're reading in the book of Ecclesiastes is what Solomon has seen under the sun without a divine perspective. It's not that he's denying that he has a divine perspective, but he's looking at life the way most people look at life, day by day, just what I see. Even my friend, Dr. Andy Pierce is his name, who spoke in that video that I watched last evening. Even Dr. Pierce asked the question, what is God doing in the death of my child, this dear baby? Some of you have experienced this, and you have friends and family who have experienced this. What is God doing in this? And there are no answers. Dr. Pierce was sitting at the bedside of an elderly pastor whom he had known for many years, an inner city pastor, a church of people who have not had advantages that other Christians in Memphis have had because they're in the inner city. The education is poor. The Memphis City education system is a poor system. And they haven't had access to advanced training. They haven't been able to work in well-paying jobs. And this pastor had preached the prosperity gospel all his life. And Dr. Pierce and the pastor had had a long-term friendship. They knew each other well. And he said, we both knew that we disagreed, but we valued our friendship more than we valued our disagreements. And the pastor said he came down with COVID and was miserably, he was suffering miserably. And the man said, Andy, what is God doing in all this? And Dr. Pierce said, I can't answer that, but there is one thing that I'd like to point out to you. He is giving you the opportunity to show your congregation that God is worthy of worship. And I'm saying it in the terms that I would use. I'm not using the language that Dr. Pierce was saying, but he was saying the same thing. God is giving you the opportunity to show your congregation that even when you can't understand, and particularly when you can't understand what God is doing, God is giving you the opportunity to show that God is worthy of our trust, even in such times. And that's an important issue for us, folks. I've got to see the lot here in Ecclesiastes. I've got to see the lot of people who deny our God, who deny the Lord Jesus, who ignore them, and they're trying to live and find meaning in life. I've got to see the lot that they are facing in life and be able to express to them your appreciation, your understanding, and that the Bible even understands their hopeless, meaningless moments in life and has a way out. So here, we're beginning to see it. They have no way to see it. But you must be shown the futility of life so that you will understand the fruitfulness of life in Christ. So verses 2-9, we will treat them as having said something meaningful about them. The remarkable thing is that with great power comes great limitation, and you still can't do all that you would like to do. We've commented on this in our previous two studies on Ecclesiastes. Verses 8:10 to 9:1, fearing God is still what is right. So then, verse 8, chapter 8:10, no man has authority to restrain the wind with the wind, or authority over the day of death, and there is no discharge in the time of war. and evil will not deliver those who practice it. All this I have seen and applied my mind to every deed that has been done under the sun, wherein a man has exercised authority over another man to his hurt. So then I have seen the wicked buried, those who used to go in and out from the holy place, and they are soon forgotten in the city where they did thus. This too is futility. All of their service, they were wicked. Their sacrifices were wicked. Even though they were legally right, they were wicked sacrifices. It's futility, because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly. Therefore, the hearts of the sons of men among them are given fully to do evil. God delays his judgment, partly out of mercy to us, and partly out of giving sinners more opportunity to do all the sin that's in their hearts. And the delay of God's mercy makes the delay from God's mercy, the delay of wrath by God's mercy, means that the last judgment is going to be worse than it ever would have been before, had he done it earlier. Although a sinner does evil 100 times and may lengthen his life, still I know that it will be well with those who fear the Lord, or fear God, who fear him openly. So there are some things that are good in life, things that he had not acknowledged in the first part of the book. You see how this new section that began at 6:10 is different from what we read in the early portion of the book. But it will not be well for the evil man, for he will not lengthen his days like a shadow, because he does not fear God. There is futility which is done on the earth. That is, there are righteous men to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked. Is that not true, brothers and sisters? Isn't it the case that wicked people prosper and seem to have life full and abundantly, and the children of God suffer? Is that not the case? Have you lived in India that long that you have forgotten this? Life in India is so prosperous and so wonderful for every Christian that you have forgotten this? And the answer, of course, is no. And I'm speaking what I know you are thinking as we go through this. But it is the case that sometimes the good die young. On the other hand, there are evil men to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. I say this too is vanity, is futility. So I commended pleasure. And here's one thing that's good. When you get a little pleasure, enjoy it. Milk it for everything it has. So I commended pleasure, for there's nothing good for a man under the sun, except to eat and to drink and to be merry. And this will stand by him in his toils throughout the days of his life, which God has given him under the sun. If God has given you some pleasure, enjoy it. Because that's going to fortify you. Verse 16, when I gave my heart to know wisdom and to see the task which is done on the earth, even though one should never sleep day or night, and I saw every work of God, I concluded that man cannot discover the work which has been done under the sun. Even though a man should seek laboriously, he will not discover. And though the wise should say, I know, he cannot discover. For I have taken all of this to my heart and explain it, that righteous men, wise men, and their deeds are in the hand of God. Man does not know. Man does not know whether it will be love or hatred. Anything awaits him. If you're a righteous man, if you're a wise man, and I see now a sister among us, a wise sister, if you are wise and righteous, it's all in the hand of God. And sometimes, as for the American church, he has given us pleasure and freedom from oppression, freedom from opposition, freedom from persecution by the community. It's beginning to dissolve. But the Indian church has known opposition and hostility all its existence. Does that mean that the American church is in the hand of God and the Indian church is the hand of the devil? And the answer is no. Both are in the hand of God, and he has given you what is necessary for him to produce in you the likeness of Christ, the way he wants you to be like Jesus. And he has given us the same thing. The problem that the American church has is that we have not used our privilege. We have not used the benefits that we have had. If we had, we probably would not have known community acceptance widely in our nation. Now, verse 2, let me move on here beyond that to, apparently I have left chapter 9:2 to 11:6 are not part of the Bible, apparently. I left that out entirely of the outline. But let's pick it up at 9:2. He is exploring the notion that we are in the hand of God here. It is the same for all. There is one fate for the righteous and for the wicked. The righteous die and the wicked die. For the good, for the clean and the unclean. For the man who offers a sacrifice and for the one who does not sacrifice. All are going to die. As the good man is, so is the sinner. As the swearer is, so is the one who is afraid to swear. And here, swearer is one who takes a vow, not somebody who uses bad language, in case that's a meaning for the word swear in India. This is an evil that is done under the sun, that there is one fate for all men. It makes everything futile if you're looking at life under the sun. Death makes everything futile. And I began to realize that. My first real awareness of that was when a man that I call my favorite professor died, and I was at his funeral, and I realized all his great learning, and the books that we wanted him to write never got written. He said that he could either be a scholar or a pastor, and he chose to be a pastor, even though he was a professor at the seminary. But all of us, there were about 6 or 7 books that all of us wanted him to write, and they did not get written. And I thought, what good is all the learning that he did? It's all gone. It's wasted. And then I realized the good is the effect, the touch, the impact that he had on each of us, his students, that goes on generation by generation as we go on in our ministries. But death makes life futile. And I was 20 years ago when he died. I was still a young man in my 50s at that point. And I suddenly, for the first time, realized death makes everything futile. Look at verse 7 now, chapter 9, verse 7. Go then, what do I do in light of the futility that death brings over all life? Go then, eat your bread in happiness. Yes, but you may say, you don't know how my wife cooks. I don't need to. If God has given her to you, she is his gift. She is his gift to you. And her cooking is her gift to you. So you enjoy it. You learn to enjoy what she cooks. Go then, eat your bread in happiness. Drink your wine with a cheerful heart, for God has already approved your works. If he's given you the ability to enjoy food, God has approved your works. Let your clothes be white all the time, and let not oil be lacking on your head. That is, dress as if you're celebrating. Dress as if everything is going well, because you have the favor of God, then everything is going well. Let your clothes be white. Verse 9, enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life, which he has given to you under the sun, This is a gift from God. For this is your reward in life and in your toil in which you have labored under the sun. You may say, yes, but you don't know my wife. I don't have to. I know my wife. My wife married a sinner. And I didn't marry a saint. And neither did you, and neither did your wife. So learn to enjoy the wife that God has given you. This is a gift from God. So my wife is a godly woman. She's a woman of faith. How should I not value that? And if your wife is a woman of faith, you should value that too. So this is a gift from God. This is how you get through these futile days of life. The younger you are, the less this message impresses you. But the younger you are, the more you need this message. Verse 10 now. Work hard. Whenever you have a task to do, work hard at it. Verse 11, here is an important verse in that regard. Again, I saw under the sun, the race is not to the swift, the battle is not to the warriors, neither is bread to the wise, nor wealth to the discerning, nor favor to men of ability, for time and chance overtake them all. Moreover, man does not know his time, like fish caught in a treacherous net, birds trapped in a snare. So the sons of men are ensnared at an evil time when it suddenly falls on them, and so on. This is life under the sun. And so he goes back and forth between what's good and what's futile. So look now at the end of the chapter, verses 16, 17, and 18. In fact, notice verse 15. There was found in the city a poor wise man, and he delivered the city by his wisdom, yet no one remembered the poor man. He did a great thing, and that's good, but nobody remembered. So verse 16. So I said, wisdom is better than strength, but the wisdom of the poor man is despised, and his words are not heeded. The words of the wise, heard in quietness, are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but the sinner destroys much good. So you and I must pursue wisdom, whatever else we do. And as we know, wisdom, the beginning of wisdom, is the fear of God. And that's where Solomon is all the way through this book. So one of the problems you have, the younger you are, the less you realize this. One of the problems all of us have is, am I doing anything that's meaningful? And the answer is, well, it depends on whether you're living in faith in God, not just trusting God about salvation, but you're really trusting him about your day-to-day life. If you're trusting him about your day-to-day life, there is no telling, only at the judgment seat of Christ will it come out, all that God has done through you. I've come to believe over the years that God is a God who loves surprises. He loves surprising people. The reason for that, the reason I have come to that conclusion is he keeps so much of what we're actually accomplishing hidden from us today. There's coming a day when he will reveal it, and you will be stunned with joy, unable to respond adequately with the joy to see what God has done through your influence in life. But it's because you pursue wisdom, which is the fear of God. And fear of God is what faith is. If you live by faith, trusting that God is doing something more than you understand, more than you know, and in ways that you can't even comprehend yet, then you can go on in this meaningless life. So verses 16 to 18, you can go on as a forgotten person. and still know that God is doing something useful. Chapter 10, a little foolishness ruins everything. And there is, notice verses 5 and following, there is an evil I have seen under the sun, an error which goes forth from the ruler. Folly is set in many exalted places, while rich men sit in humble places. I have seen slaves riding on horses and princes walking like slaves on the land. Brothers and sisters, you and I are the princes who are walking while the fools ride. That's okay. Folly is set in many exalted places, he says, while rich men sit in humble places. You may do a job, verse 8, he who digs a pit may fall into it, and a serpent may bite him who breaks through the wall, and so on. Folly is endemic in this world. We cannot get away from it. The climax of this section down to verse 6 of chapter 11. Let's pick it up at 11:1. So what should I do if folly is everywhere and spoils everything, yet God is at work and doing things we don't understand? Well, cast your bread on the surface of the waters, for you will not find it after many days. For you will find it after many days. Divide your portion to 7 and even to 8. That is, divide your portion here. If you have a field that you're farming, divide it up into sections, and make sure that you sow in perhaps even different crops in different sections. Divide your farm into 7 or even 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. So if your lands are scattered, sow over here, sow over there, sow close to home, so far from home, because a thunderstorm may hit and ruin the crop in one area, but the crop in the other area will be delivered. If clouds are full, they pour out rain upon the earth, and whether a tree falls toward the north or toward the south, where the tree falls, there it lies. How do you predict these things? He who watches the wind will not sow, and he who looks for the clouds will not reap. Just as you do not know the path of the wind, and how bones are formed in the womb of the pregnant woman, so you do not know the activity of the Lord, of God, who makes all things. That's the saving feature for us in this section. So verse 6 now, sow your seed in the morning and do not be idle in the evening, for you do not know whether morning or evening sowing will succeed, or whether both of them alike will succeed. Verse 7 to 12:8, what is good is to pursue God. Now we're getting to the point. What is good is to pursue God and enjoy life in the days of youth, since old age and death will soon come. Verse 7. And let me pick it up with verse 8. Indeed, if a man should live many years, let him rejoice in them all. And let him remember the days of darkness, for they will be many. Everything that is to come is futility. Rejoice, young man, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasant during the days of young manhood. And follow the impulses of your heart and the desires of your eyes. Yet, know that God will bring you to judgment for all these things. So you live in light of unseen realities. And that's what faith is, folks. Living by faith means you live in light of unseen realities. If you look at the wind, you won't sow. If you look at the rain, you won't harvest. So you live in light of unseen realities. You live in light of a coming judgment. You live in light of the benevolence of God that has given you gifts. And as I said to classes for 30 years and more, when I've taught Ecclesiastes, if you don't enjoy the gifts that God has given you, why should he give you better gifts? If you don't enjoy the food he's given you, why should he give you better food? You wouldn't enjoy that either. So what do we do? And what does a young man do with his life? Well, that's the allegory of youth that follows now in chapter 12, verses 1 to 8. The allegory of old age. What a time this is. This allegory of old age. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near when you will say, I have no delight in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened. They're not actually darkened as the older among us know. My eyes don't use light the way they used to when I was young. And so on. All of this is this allegory of old age. Verse 6, the NASV, which I'm reading, adds at the beginning of verse 6, remember God before the silver cord is broken and the golden bowl is crushed and the pitcher by the well is shattered and the wheel of the cistern is crushed. Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. There is our hope. Everything else, verse 8, vanity of vanities, says the preacher. All is vanity. Now, with verses 9 let me move on to 12, 9 to 14. The result. Here's the conclusion. Here's the end of the matter. Verse 9, in addition to being a wise man, the preacher also taught the people knowledge. He pondered, searched, and arranged many proverbs. The preacher sought to find delightful words and to write words of truth correctly. This gives the lie, by the way, to various views, skeptical views on the book of Ecclesiastes. The Schofield Bible note says Ecclesiastes is altogether the way you look at life under the sun. That's not the case. Solomon is looking at life under the sun through much of the book, but in order to raise our eyes above the sun, to the Son who came in flesh and lived among us. So to lift our eyes above the light of the sun that we see by day to the light of the Son who sits at the right hand of God. So he is writing, verse 10, delightful words of truth written correctly. The words of wise men are like goads, and masters of these collections are like well-driven nails. They are given by one shepherd. But beyond this, my son, be warned. The writing of many books is endless, and excessive devotion to books is wearying to the body. You can see a little less than half my books that I retain. And I'm trying to write other books. I'm trying to write a book on the Lord's Supper now. And I've just completed, by the way, my last semester, full semester at Dallas Seminary. I have turned in my grades. Everything is done. And I'm looking forward to the future. And I thought yesterday, as I was finishing reporting my grades, I thought, now maybe I can spend some time with my book and I can get some more work done on my book. I'm lazy, and so I don't do it. I appreciate your prayers that the Lord would give me motivation. He would not just tell me, Jim, I want you to develop this at this point in your life. But we should pray that he would give me motivation to get up and do the research and do the writing that I need to do. Thank you. I see one of you assuring me of that. So that's a prayer request you can lift to the Lord for me. So the conclusion, verse 13. The conclusion, when all has been heard, is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act to judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil. So there is a divine perspective to the book of Ecclesiastes, and the old Schofield note was simply wrong. It's inspired. The old Schofield note said the book is inspired because it tells us what the earthling thinks, but it has no other real message for us. No, this has a profound message for us, folks. I've got to learn what living by faith means. I'm going to summarize it here. I've got to learn what living by faith means. I choose God's agenda. I don't give him an agenda that he must bless. I don't make a plan. I find God's plan and find my place in that plan, and know that whether I see any fruit or not, God will not leave his work fruitless in my life. That's the message of Ecclesiastes as I understand it.